Andrew Gillum is leading in the polls against odd racist Ron DeSantis. There's actually something in this clip here. I don't want to bring up this whole class race debate. I actually find a lot of it really very useless. And as I said, I think the synthesis that we need to have is actually operationally pretty clear. And I would recommend that everybody read and listen to interviews that I've done with Bill Fletcher Jr., who I will be talking to again soon. I think he is actually probably he has the best view of this sort of overall in terms of integrating perspectives. But this is a good example of how, of course, in a context like this race, where there are robocalls being run that are, overt racist appeals, where Ron DeSantis has in addition to obviously his support of Donald Trump, has his own extensive background with racist and xenophobic groups. Andrew Gillum would make history as the first black governor of Florida. And there's also a huge amount of civil rights issues, including, of course, voting rights, which hang in the balance in this election. And there's also just a principle of politics here that go on the offense, make yourself look good, and your opponent look bad. And in this exchange, in addition to the rightness and the beauty of how well Gillum owned DeSantis here, think to yourself, outside of that core of Republican voters who are white identity politics driven, what normal person, including people who they might not be as woke as you, whatever. This is where I get annoyed with the identity side. They might not be on board with everything. They might not use the right terms, whatever. But they are very, you can appeal to them on justice and rightness. And also just who's a more appealing human being. What normal person outside of that white identity politics base is going to watch this exchange and not come away backing Andrew Gillum? Let's watch this from last night. It was incredibly impressive.
On live TV in August, on the first day of the general election campaign, you said of Andrew Gillum's run for governor, quote, "The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by embracing a socialist agenda." Fox News quickly disavowed your words, saying, quote, "They do not condone the language." Now, you called some of this response absurd. You've made appearances at 4 of David Horowitz's Freedom Center events. Again, 4 separate times, 4 speeches. Among some of Mr. Horowitz's statements, quoting here, "This country's only serious race war is against whites." I'll ask the questions. Okay. It's not a McCarthy game, and I'm giving. Yeah. Wait for the question, sir. Okay. He also said, "If blacks are oppressed in America, why isn't there a black exodus?" Now, in 2015, in your speech before the Freedom Center, you said of Mr. Horowitz, "David has done such a great work, and I've been an admirer. I've been to these conferences in the past, and I've been a big admirer of an organization that shoots straight, tells the American people the truth, and is standing up for the right thing." Those are his words. Here's my question.
He had not even made those statements then.
Yes, he had, sir. The first statement was made many years ago.
How the hell am I supposed to know every single statement somebody makes? Here's the deal.
Look at the way Gillum looks at him when he squeaks like that.
Yes. And this, by the way, this is all Jordan Peterson dominance hierarchy stuff, and he's right about some of this. So look at the body language. Look at who looks better on TV. Look who's whiny and defensive. Look who's calm, collected, and clear.
Made those statements then?
Yes, he had, sir. The first statement was made many years ago.
How the hell am I supposed to know every single statement somebody makes? Here's the deal. Let me just say this straight up. I've lived my life, whether it's athletics, whether it's military, whether it's serving as a prosecutor. When I was downrange.
Pause it. Yeah, serving as a Florida prosecutor would be a great indicator for the sensitivity to racial justice issues.
Also,
I bet.
Going to the Kavanaugh, I played varsity sports with blacks.
Yeah, right. Actually, if you read Christian Piccolini's book, who we have on the show, he talks about one of the first disconnects he had between being a skinhead in high school was playing football with black players, and he was able to put aside his literal skinhead membership to win some games.
In Iraq, we worked together as a team regardless of race. We had the American flag on our arm. We wore the same uniform, and we fought for the country. When I was a prosecutor, I stood up for victims of every race, color, and creed. That's the only way to do it in our country. It's something I believe in, and as governor, I will represent all the people. Everyone will get a fair shake. But I am not going to bow down to the altar of political correctness. I'm going to not let the media smear me like they like to do with so many other people.
Sir,
I'm certainly not going to take anything from Andrew Gillum, who's endorsed the Dream Defenders, which says Israel is an apartheid state, and which says the police and prisons have no place in justice.
Mr. Gillum, wait for the applause and go. And Mr. DeSantis, I'll point out, I wish you would have waited for the question, because I had a question and it's not what you think it is. Mr. Gillum, I'll give you a chance to respond now.
Well, let me first say, my grandmother used to say, a hit dog will holler, and it hollered through this room. Mr. DeSantis has spoken. Hey, first of all, he's got neo-Nazis helping him out in the state. He has spoken at racist conferences. He's accepted a contribution and would not return it from someone who referred to the former president of the United States as a Muslim, Nigger. When asked to return that money, he said no. He's using that money to now fund negative ads. Now, I'm not calling Mr. DeSantis a racist. I'm simply saying the racists believe he's a racist.
Mr. DeSantis.
Boom.
If I would ask the audience to please let Mr. DeSantis now respond.
The conference I attended was keynoted by a Medal of Honor recipient.
And of course, it's perfect because he goes actually to the most pathetic form of identity politics there. There's one person playing identity politics the way people use the term pejoratively in that clip, and that's him. The pejorative critique of identity politics is that everything else is subordinate purely to your identity. Your positions don't matter. Your arguments don't matter. Your identity is the only thing that matters. And to the extent that that's ever true, that, of course, is either an incomplete picture or just wrong. And the only person that's doing that is him. I played sports. I was in the military. I prosecuted. There was a vet there. Andrew Gillum is appealing to a broad set of people who, even if they aren't, they might like to think that they might want to actually get to a place that's ethical and correct with regard to opposing racism. And that's going to be certainly anybody who's susceptible to voting for a Democrat in that race is going to have that perspective. So he framed it as, you're the one who's out of the mainstream. Normal people don't run around with neo-Nazis. Normal people don't go to freakish far-right divisive conferences. It's the same way that the residents of Charlottesville came out and they confronted that little scumbag Jason Kessler. Like, don't come with your terrorism and your racism and your toxicity and ruin our town. That is how it needs to be framed. And that was perfectly done. And absolutely right. And also, it took it out of the morality game, which these guys love to do. Okay, I don't know what is in Ron DeSantis's heart. I don't know what the particulars of his, how he self-justifies his support for Donald Trump, his associations with disgusting people, his advocacy of bigoted, xenophobic policies. I don't care. The racists think you're a racist. Boom. That's it. And no person who has any pretension of leadership to a position like the governor of the state of Florida in the country that we have to create, not the country that it is now, and certainly not the country that it's been historically, should that ever be acceptable. Andrew Gillum nailed that, and that's how you do it. It's perfect. We're going to take a